I will never forget the sound my daughter made when the boiling hot coffee hit her arm, a scream so raw it sliced straight through my chest. One moment, she was quietly sitting in her wheelchair outside the community center, waiting for me. The next moment, Karen, our HOA's most entitled and cruel woman, stormed out the door, yelling something about rules, and without hesitation, threw a full cup of steaming hot coffee directly onto my disabled 12-year-old daughter. The cup clattered on the pavement. My daughter's skin blistered instantly. She shook, crying, terrified, begging me, "Dad, it burns, please help." And Karen? She stood there smirking like she'd done something righteous. But what this evil woman didn't know is that what happened next would shake our entire HOA to its core, uncovering secrets, lies, and the one truth she never imagined would destroy her. Before we begin, I want to ask you one thing. Which city are you watching this video from? Drop your city name in the comments. I love seeing where my viewers across the USA are tuning in from. And before the story officially starts, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to hear is something no parent should ever have to face. Now, let's start. My daughter, Emma, was born with a neurological condition that limits her mobility. She's gentle, artistic, and soft-spoken, the kind of kid who says sorry even when something isn't her fault. But ever since we moved into this HOA-controlled neighborhood in Washington State, she'd become an easy target, especially for Karen Thompson, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, a woman who treated community rules like weapons and neighbors like her personal subjects. For months, she nitpicked everything, Emma's wheelchair leaving marks on the sidewalk, her taking too long to get in and out of the car, even accusing us of ruining neighborhood aesthetics because we installed a small ramp. We ignored her spite, hoping she would eventually leave us alone. But that morning changed everything. I had just stepped out of the car while Emma waited near the entrance of the community center, excited for her weekly art class, sketchbook on her lap, humming her favorite song. Then the doors burst open. Karen stormed out, furious, gripping a cup of steaming hot coffee. She shouted something about rules being broken again, and before I could react, she threw the scalding coffee directly onto my disabled daughter. Emma's scream tore through the air, and that single moment set off a chain of events Karen never imagined, because she had no idea who she was really messing with. The moment that scalding coffee hit Emma's skin, time split in two, the life we had before and the one that came after. I didn't even hear myself scream her name. All I remember is the look on her face, shock first, then unbearable pain. Her tiny fingers clenched the armrest of her wheelchair, her whole body trembling as the steaming liquid soaked into her sleeves, dripping down her arm in burning trails. "Dad, it hurts, please." Her voice cracked, and I felt my entire world collapse. I dropped everything I was holding and ran, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. The smell of burnt skin mixed with the bitter scent of spilled coffee. Emma recoiled, tears streaming down her cheeks, her good hand reaching for me blindly. "I've got you, baby. I've got you," I said, my hands shaking as I pulled off her jacket to prevent more heat from trapping against her skin. I could already see blisters forming, angry red bubbles rising across her forearm. A sight no parent should ever have to witness. And then I looked up at the woman who did it. Karen stood only a few feet away, her expression a twisted mixture of triumph and fake innocence. Her blonde hair was pushed back perfectly, HOA badge clipped to her chest like she was some kind of law enforcement officer. She crossed her arms and scoffed as if my daughter's pain was an inconvenience to her. "Maybe next time she'll learn not to block the walkway," Karen said coldly. I froze. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't understand if she was real. What kind of person says something like that? What kind of monster throws boiling liquid at a disabled child and then blames her for it? "You did this to my daughter," I said, my voice shaking with rage. She was violating HOA guidelines. Karen snapped, lifting her chin. "Your daughter and that wheelchair. That wheelchair is her lifeline." I roared louder than I had ever spoken in my life. Other parents nearby stopped mid-conversation, their faces turning toward us. People peeked out from behind their cars. A woman dropped her keys. The world seemed to freeze. But Karen rolled her eyes. Every week, I tell you the same thing. Wheelchairs blocking the community center entrance is against regulations. Maybe if she wasn't parked there like a lawn ornament. That was it. My blood went cold. I turned toward the bystanders. Did anyone see what she just did? She threw boiling coffee on my daughter. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Some rushed forward to see Emma's arm. A mother covered her mouth. Another man took out his phone to call 911. Karen's face stiffened. Oh, please. It wasn't boiling. And SHE startled me. She was sitting in her wheelchair coloring. My voice broke. She didn't even look at you. Emma whimpered softly, and that sound ripped my focus back to her. I kneeled again, pulling out a bottle of cold water from her backpack, pouring it carefully over her arm, trying to cool the burns. She flinched hard but held onto my shirt, burying her face in my chest. "Dad, don't leave me," she said, her voice thin and trembling. "I'm right here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere." But inside, a storm was building, one I had spent years learning how to control. As the bystanders confronted Karen, she suddenly panicked. Her voice cracked, her facade slipping. "Stop exaggerating. It was an accident. I didn't throw it, it slipped." "Lady, I saw you throw it," one teenager said, holding up his phone camera. "I got it on video." Karen's face drained of color. "You delete that right now," she demanded. "No," the kid said. "You literally assaulted a disabled girl." Some people began gathering around her, forming a loose circle. Karen tried to push through, but someone stepped in her way. That's when she snapped. "You people don't understand. She blocks the door every week." "I've been patient, but—" "Patient," shouted another parent. "You threw hot coffee at her." Karen's voice rose, shrill and defensive. "I am the HOA enforcement officer. It's my job to keep the community safe. If parents don't control their children, I have to—" And that's when I finally stood up. Slowly, deliberately, Emma clinging to my arm, tears still streaming. Every head turned toward me as I stepped between Karen and the crowd. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I didn't push her. I simply looked at her. And for the first time, something flickered behind her eyes. Fear. Real fear. Because behind my calm appearance, behind the trembling of my hands, behind the softness I always carried for my daughter, there was another version of me. One that Karen had no idea existed. One I had promised myself I would never have to be again. "Karen," I said quietly, my voice low and even, "you assaulted my daughter. You caused physical harm. And I promise you, I will not let this go." She scoffed again, but it was weaker this time. "You can't do anything. HOA rules protect me. And besides, you don't know who sits on the board. You're just—" She didn't get to finish, because at that exact moment, a police cruiser turned into the parking lot, lights flashing. Karen's mouth dropped open. "Wait, what? Who called them?" The teenage boy lifted his phone. "I did." Two officers stepped out, Officers Daniels and Ruiz, both familiar faces. They waved at me respectfully as they approached. "Sir, we got multiple emergency calls. Is your daughter okay?" Before I could answer, Karen shoved forward. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man is harassing me. His daughter." "Ma'am," Officer Daniels said firmly, "please step back." The moment he saw Emma's arm, his expression hardened. "Jesus, these are second-degree burns. It was an accident." Karen cried. "We saw the video on the way." Officer Ruiz said coldly. "It wasn't an accident." Karen's eyes widened. "You already?" But. Officer Daniels turned to me. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" Before I could answer, Karen screamed, "You can't do this. I know people. I know everyone in this HOA. You can't touch me." I looked right into her eyes. "You have no idea who you're dealing with either," I whispered, because this time, I wasn't just a father. And Karen was about to learn the truth that would flip her entire world upside down. The police cruiser's lights reflected off every car in the parking lot, turning the scene into something surreal, blue, and red flashes sweeping across Emma's tear-streaked face, illuminating the blistered skin on her arm. Officer Daniels radioed for medical assistance, while Officer Ruiz carefully examined the burns, his jaw tightening with every second. "We need paramedics here, ASAP," Ruiz said. "This is serious." Emma winced, burying her face in my chest again. I stroked her hair, gently, trying to steady my breathing. I didn't want her to feel my anger, the kind that had once defined years of my life before I left behind the career that shaped me. But right now, that past lurked dangerously close beneath the surface. Karen, meanwhile, paced back and forth like a cornered animal. She tried appealing to the officers again, waving her perfectly manicured hands dramatically. "You don't understand. He lets her park anywhere she wants. He ignores the HOA rules weekly. I was just enforcing regulations. By throwing scalding liquid on a child?" Daniels said, raising an eyebrow. "You're lucky she isn't facing third-degree burns." Karen's face twisted, but she kept insisting it wasn't hot enough to cause real injuries. "She's exaggerating. This whole thing is being blown out of proportion. She's 12, Karen," a mother snapped, "and disabled. Look at her arm." Karen scoffed again, but her voice was cracking now. "Well, they shouldn't have moved here if they can't handle the HOA standards. This neighborhood is supposed to represent class, not—" Officer Ruiz cut her off. "Ma'am, take one more step in that direction and you will be detained." The officer's tone silenced her instantly. But then, something unexpected happened. 3 HOA board members emerged from the community center, clearly having been called by someone or alerted by the commotion. They walked over with stiff, concerned expressions that quickly shifted when they saw Karen, as if relief washed through them. "Karen, what happened?" asked Board President Denise Harper, a woman in her 60s with sharp glasses and a smile far too practiced to be genuine. "Oh, thank God you're here," Karen said, rushing to them. "They're accusing me of assault. You know, I would never." Denise put a hand on her shoulder. "Calm down. We'll handle this." Then she turned to the officers, her smile tightening. "Officers, this seems to be a misunderstanding. Karen would never intentionally harm anyone. She's been dedicated to supporting this community for years. I'm sure we can resolve this without pressing charges." Officer Daniels frowned. "Ma'am, we have body cam footage, eyewitnesses, and video evidence from a bystander. This wasn't a misunderstanding." Denise didn't flinch. "And we have years of good behavior from one of our most valued HOA enforcers." She said it like Karen was a hero returning from battle. I stepped forward. "My daughter is injured. She's in pain. And you want to talk about Karen's good behavior?" Denise's gaze flicked briefly to Emma, then right back to me, cold and unfeeling. She crossed her arms. "This family has been repeatedly warned about blocking community access points," she said sharply. "Your daughter's wheelchair creates traffic hazards at the community center entrance." My jaw clenched. The crowd around us stirred in disgust. A father shouted, "Are you insane? She's a child. She wasn't blocking anything." But Denise continued, undeterred. And as per HOA guidelines, repeated violations can lead to corrective actions. Corrective actions. I had heard versions of that phrase before, but never in such an absurd, cruel context. My hands curled into fists before I forced myself to loosen them. "Are you saying," I asked slowly, "that your corrective action is allowing Karen to throw boiling coffee on a child?" Denise paused, searching for words that would make her sound reasonable. "I'm saying," she replied, "that emotions are high and mistakes happen. The HOA will conduct an internal review and handle this." "No," I said immediately. "No." Denise blinked. "This isn't HOA business. This is assault, a crime, and the police will handle it." Officer Daniels nodded. "He's right. HOA guidelines don't supersede state law." But Denise stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You don't want to go down this road, sir." Her tone shifted, threatening, almost whispered, a sound I knew too well from another life. "Karen is protected," she continued, "and once we file our report, you'll find yourself drowning in fines, hearings, and violations, maybe even forced relocation." The crowd murmured angrily. I looked right into Denise's eyes. "You're threatening a father while his daughter is still crying in pain," I said. "No," Denise corrected calmly. "I'm giving you a chance to avoid a bigger problem." A bigger problem. My past flickered again. Memories of interrogation rooms, hostile negotiations, and people who believed their power was unquestionable. People who thought intimidation would silence the truth. And like those people, Denise had just made a crucial mistake. I didn't respond to her threat. Not yet. Instead, I turned to Officer Daniels. "I want to file an official statement," I said. "I want a full report, and I want Karen charged." Daniels nodded firmly. "We already have enough to detain her." Karen froze. "What detain? Me? No, you can't do that." Denise, stop them." Denise stepped forward. "Officers, I insist you wait until we speak with the HOA, legal advisor. None of this is necessary." "It is necessary," Daniels said, "and you have no authority to intervene in a criminal matter." Finally, someone pushed back. But Karen still tried to escape the moment. She threw her hands up dramatically. "I didn't mean to do anything. It slipped. I swear." The teenage boy lifted his phone again. "Ma'am, it didn't slip. I literally have you throwing it." Karen's face contorted. Rage, fear, and humiliation battled across her features. Then she turned to me. "You think you're better than the HOA?" she screamed. "You think you can ruin my life? You have no idea who we are. You have no idea who I know." I met her stare, my voice low and steady. "And you have no idea who I am." Silence fell over the crowd. Karen's mouth hung open. Denise looked startled for the first time. But before either could respond, the paramedics arrived. They hurried toward us, gently lifting Emma's arm to assess the burns. She whimpered, and my heart cracked again. "We'll need to take her to the hospital," one medic said. "She's in shock, and the burns need immediate treatment." I kissed Emma's forehead. "I'm coming with you." As they prepared to load her into the ambulance, Officer Daniels approached me. "Sir, when you said she doesn't know who you are, what did you mean?" I looked at him. "Calm, controlled, steady. I'll explain everything at the hospital," I said, "because this is much bigger than you think." And as the ambulance doors closed, I knew one thing for certain. Karen hadn't just assaulted my daughter. She had just opened a door she would never be able to close again. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens, cold sweat, and the soft whimpers of my daughter trying to stay brave. I held her hand the entire time, whispering to her, trying to keep her calm, even as a storm raged inside me. The paramedics worked quickly, covering her arm with sterile dressings, checking her vitals, assuring her she'd be okay. But even after they stabilized her, she wouldn't let go of my hand. "Dad, don't leave me," she whispered again, her voice fragile. "I'm right here," I said. "No one is taking me away from you." But someone had tried to take something from us, our peace, our dignity, our safety, and for months, Karen had been pushing inch by inch. What she did today wasn't sudden. It was calculated. There was something behind her hatred, something deeper, something she had been waiting to unleash. Once at the hospital, nurses took Emma to the burn unit. I was allowed to follow, staying by her side as they carefully cleaned the wounds and began treatment. Watching her cry through the pain was torture. Every tear carved itself into my memory. When she finally drifted into an exhausted sleep, the doctors pulled me aside. "She's stable," the lead doctor said. "Her burns are second degree, but deep. She'll need dressing changes, medication, and close monitoring for infection. But she's strong." I nodded, though part of me felt numb. "Thank you. Just take care of her, please." "We will." After they left, Officer Daniels entered the hospital room quietly. His expression was grim, but respectful. "Sir," he said, "we have Karen in custody. She's refusing to speak without her HOA attorney. The board members are already trying to interfere." "Of course they are," I muttered. Daniels paused, studying me. "Look, earlier when you said she doesn't know who you are, you meant something, didn't you?" My jaw tightened. I wasn't ready to reveal that. "Not yet. What matters," I said carefully, "is that Karen's attack wasn't random. She's had an agenda for months. Daniels pulled out a small notebook. Go on. I leaned back in the chair, my mind replaying the last year like a slow-motion nightmare. When we moved in, Karen immediately targeted us. At first, it was small things, complaints about wheelchair ramps, noise violations when Emma laughed too loudly outside, false reports about damaged grass from the tires of her wheelchair. We let it slide. Daniels nodded. HOAs can be intense, but this is extreme. Then she escalated. I continued. I caught her photographing Emma without permission. She once tried to block the ramp with trash cans, saying it wasn't community approved. She reported us to the board weekly. She sounds obsessed, Daniel said. She is, I replied. But it wasn't just hate. She wanted something. What? To push us out. Daniels frowned. Why? That was the question. I took a slow breath. Karen's hatred wasn't about the ramp, or the wheelchair, or the rules. She wanted to force us out, so she could take control of our property. Daniels stared at me. Our property? Yes, I said. We purchased one of the largest corner homes in the neighborhood, the last one with an unclaimed extension space behind it. According to HOA plans, Karen wanted that area to build a private community enforcement office. But the previous owners refused to sell it to her, and when we bought the house, she lost it. Understanding dawned on his face. So, this wasn't personal at first. It was strategic. It became personal when she realized she couldn't intimidate me, I said, and when she noticed Emma's disability, she saw weakness. Daniels exhaled slowly. So, she targeted a child because she couldn't control the father. I nodded. Exactly. Before Daniels could say anything else, Officer Ruiz walked into the room. His face was pale, his brows pulled tight. You need to hear this, Ruiz said. It's about Karen. Daniels straightened. What now? Ruiz handed me a printed document. It looked like a leaked email thread, HOA board communications. I scanned it, and every line was worse than the one before. Karen had written, "The new family is becoming a problem. The daughter is slowing down community access. We need to consider forcing a relocation for the sake of neighborhood efficiency." Another reply from Denise. Agreed. Begin pressure with citations. Use safety as justification. Then Karen again. If we create enough infractions, they won't be able to fight it. Father seems quiet, likely won't push back. Quiet. That word pulsed like a warning. And then the final line, written by Karen just 2 days before the incident. If he won't leave willingly, we'll escalate. He can't protect the girl forever. My hand clenched the paper. Daniel's voice was rough. This is enough to show premeditation. Ruiz nodded. And there's more. We found footage from community cameras. Karen waited by the door with the coffee cup for exactly 12 minutes before approaching Emma. Daniels cursed under his breath. So she planned the whole thing. I felt something inside me shift, a cold, locked part of myself I'd buried years ago. The part that didn't tolerate injustice. The part that didn't fear powerful people. The part trained to dismantle systems protecting abusers. Daniels watched me carefully. Sir, who exactly are you? I looked him dead in the eye. For 10 years, I said slowly, I was a federal investigator specializing in domestic corruption and abuse of power. My job was to take down people just like Karen, people who hide behind authority and use it to hurt others. Daniels blinked in shock. Ruiz let out a low whistle. That explains a lot. I nodded. I retired after Emma's diagnosis. Wanted a peaceful life. Wanted to raise my daughter away from danger. Well, Daniels said softly, danger found you anyway. Not anymore, I replied quietly. This ends now. Daniels approached Emma's bed, looking at her sleeping face, the bandages on her small arm. We're not just dealing with assault anymore, he said. This is conspiracy, targeted harassment, abuse of power, and with your background, you know exactly how to expose them. I do, I said, and I want to help. I looked at him at both officers, then listened carefully. I said, because I'm going to tell you exactly how we end Karen, Denise, and the entire corrupt HOA board, legally, publicly, and permanently. The officers leaned forward. The plan began forming in my head, a plan driven not by revenge, but by the one thing Karen underestimated, a father's resolve. The truth was powerful, and once unleashed, it would consume them. Karen had attacked my daughter. Now, I was going to destroy everything she used to justify it. For a long moment after revealing my past, the room stayed silent. Officer Daniels looked like he was trying to find the right words, while Officer Ruiz kept glancing between me and the sleeping child on the hospital bed, as if he were putting together pieces of a puzzle he didn't know even existed. Finally, Daniels spoke. So, you were a federal investigator, but that still doesn't explain the way the HOA treated you. You don't exactly look like someone they would think they could bully. I exhaled slowly. That's because they didn't know that the quiet father they were targeting had another identity, I said. One I kept hidden when we moved in. Daniels frowned. Hidden? Why? I looked at Emma sleeping, her hand curled against her chest, bandages wrapping her small arm. Because I wanted her to grow up without fear, without my badge defining her, without people treating her differently. I didn't want neighbors to act polite just because of who I am. Ruiz tilted his head. Who you are or who you were? I corrected him quietly. Who I still am. Both officers straightened. What do you mean? Daniels asked. I stood slowly, reaching into my wallet and pulling out a card I hadn't shown anyone, not since we moved into the HOA neighborhood. I handed it to Daniels. He stared at it. His eyes widened. Then he looked back at me in complete disbelief. Sir, this says... Yes, I said calmly. I'm the assistant police chief, and I oversaw the Internal Affairs Division for 8 years. I paused, and between federal service and the APD, I've taken down entire networks of corruption. Ruiz let out a slow whistle. You've been living undercover in that HOA. I wasn't undercover, I corrected. I was just a father trying to raise his daughter in peace. But Karen's attack changed everything. Daniels rubbed the back of his neck. No, wonder you recognize the intimidation tactics immediately. And no wonder, Ruiz added, the HOA board has no idea what's coming. I nodded. They think they hold power over the residents. They think letters, fines, and board votes can destroy people's lives. And they've gotten away with it because no one ever pushed back hard enough. Ruiz paced the small room. They don't know who you are. They think they can scare you. That's their biggest mistake, I said, because now that they had injured my daughter, now that I had seen the email threads, the plans to force us out, now that Karen had escalated to outright violence, I wasn't just a father. I was the exact nightmare the HOA board never wanted. Daniels opened his notebook. Sir, what do you want to do next? I pulled up a chair. We're going to expose them using their own system. I said, every rule, every violation, every email, every piece of proof. Ruiz crossed his arms. So, a legal takedown. A surgical takedown, I corrected. Clean, public, foolproof. They weaponized bureaucracy against families. Now we'll weaponize truth against them. Daniels nodded. We're in. But before I could continue, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Ruiz's eyes narrowed. Someone's desperate. I answered. The moment I heard the voice, I felt my spine stiffen. It was Denise. Mr. Carter, she said with cold authority, we need to talk. I let her speak. I'm calling on behalf of the HOA board. Karen is extremely distressed, and she claims you attacked her. Before this goes any further, we suggest you withdraw your police involvement and settle this privately. I said nothing. Ruiz and Daniels leaned closer. Denise continued. If you cooperate, we can drop all pending citations against your property and avoid legal escalation. This is a reasonable offer. Reasonable. She was threatening me again. Casually, like it was routine, I finally spoke. Do you realize this call is being recorded, Denise? Silence. Then she stammered. WH what? No, why would? I leaned back in my chair. I recognized the number immediately. This is your HOA administration line. All calls from it are automatically recorded. Ruiz's eyes lit up. Daniels grinned. Denise panicked. I didn't mean any threat, of course. I only wanted to mediate. I cut her off. Denise, you're obstructing a criminal investigation. You are attempting to pressure a victim's family to drop charges against a board member who committed assault. Assault, she scoffed nervously. It was an accident. You approve the intimidation. I saw the email thread. Dead silence. Then she whispered something she shouldn't have. You weren't supposed to see that. Daniels mouthed, "Oh, she's done. I'll see you soon, Denise," I said, "but the next time we talk, it won't be on the phone." I hung up. Ruiz said they're losing control. "No," I said softly. "They've already lost it." When Emma woke up, she was groggy but stable. I stayed by her side until she drifted back to sleep again. Then I stepped out to get air. In the hallway, Ruiz approached me again. "We got Karen's statement," he said. "She claims you yelled aggressively, creating a hostile atmosphere, causing her to react instinctively." I laughed bitterly. "She's doubling down?" "She's panicking," Ruiz said. "She doesn't know you're the assistant chief. Once she does, she'll change her tune." "No," I replied. "She'll get worse. People like Karen don't stop when cornered. They go for the jugular or try to." Daniels joined us, holding fresh paperwork. "Sir, the DA wants to speak with you. They heard about the incident and the video. They also want to know more about the emails." "And the HOA board?" I asked. Daniels smirked. "The moment the HOA finds out who you really are, they'll try to bury everything. That's why they won't be the ones getting the chance," I said. Ruiz crossed his arms. "So what's next?" I looked at both officers, men who had immediately chosen the side of justice instead of politics. "We go public," I said, "but not with statements or press first." "Then how?" Daniels asked. "We start internally," I said. "We alert the precinct. We prepare the DA. We secure warrants. And when the HOA board meets tomorrow morning..." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "I will walk into that meeting." Ruiz grinned. "In uniform?" I nodded once. "For the first time since we moved here, yes." Daniels let out a breath. "They are going to freak out. They're going to do more than that," I replied. "They're going to crumble. Because tomorrow, Karen wouldn't just face charges. Tomorrow, the HOA would face me. And this time, they would understand the one truth they never expected. They didn't just target a father. They targeted the assistant police chief. And I wasn't coming alone. The morning of the HOA meeting felt colder than usual. Not because of the weather, but because something inside me had shifted overnight. The quiet father Karen thought she could bully no longer existed. What stood in his place was someone she should have never provoked. A father with power, authority, and an unbreakable reason to fight. Emma was still resting at the hospital, sedated to help with the pain. I kissed her forehead, promised her I'd be back, and walked out with a purpose that shook my entire being. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about exposing a system that believed it could mistreat the vulnerable and get away with it. It was about stopping Karen, not just for Emma, but for every family in that neighborhood who had been silently suffering under her tyranny. The HOA meeting was already packed when I arrived, homeowners whispering anxiously, board members seated stiffly at the front, and an empty chair reserved for the enforcement officer. People weren't here for a normal session. They could feel the shift in the air. As I walked toward the doors, Officer Daniels and Officer Ruiz flanked me on each side. Both in uniform, both ready, both with body cameras activated. The moment we stepped in, the room fell silent. Eyes widened. Whispers died mid-sentence. Some people stood up instinctively. Karen, sitting near the front, turned around, and the instant she saw me, her face drained of color. Denise, the board president, stiffened as if someone had dropped ice water down her back. Her smile snapped into place like a mask. "Mr. Carter," she said loudly, "you were not invited to this meeting." "No," I replied calmly, stepping forward, "but the assistant police chief was..." Gasps exploded across the room. Karen's mouth fell open. Denise blinked rapidly, adjusting her glasses as if she misread the badge pinned to my belt. Assistant, what? I scanned the room, letting the silence stretch. My name is Jonathan Carter, I said, Assistant Police Chief for this county, and I'm here today as both a father and an officer of the law. The homeowners erupted in whispers. Karen began shaking her head. Denise tried to regain control. This is irregular, she said sharply. You can't bring police into a private HOA. Actually, Daniels interrupted, we can, especially when this HOA is under active investigation. The room froze. Active what? Denise sputtered. Ruiz stepped forward. We obtained warrants this morning for board, email archives, Karen's communications, and HOA meeting footage. And we have evidence of premeditated harassment, obstruction, and targeted endangerment of a disabled minor. Homeowners gasped. Some began recording. Denise stammered, this is a misunderstanding. We're just volunteers. No, I said, my voice cutting through the air. You're people who abused your positions. I walked to the front and placed a stack of printed emails on the table. These, I said, are your own words. Emails coordinating a plan to pressure my family, intimidate my daughter, and force us out of our home. Karen jumped to her feet. Those emails were taken out of context. Daniels raised the teenager's phone, the one with footage of Karen throwing hot coffee at Emma. And this? Daniels asked, is this out of context too? The video played on the projector screen behind us. The entire room watched Karen stand inches from a disabled girl, then deliberately throw scalding coffee on her. The scream Emma let out echoed painfully through the hall. Karen stumbled backward, gasping, No, this is edited. I didn't. It's not edited, Ruiz said. It's raw footage. Murmurs turned into outrage. A man in the audience shouted, You monster. A woman cried, She could have been blinded. Another parent yelled, You targeted a child. Denise tried to pound her gavel, but her hands shook. We need order. This is a board meeting. No, I said sharply. This is an intervention. I faced the crowd. For months, this board, led by Denise and enforced through Karen, manipulated rules to torment families. They issued false violations, extorted fines, and silenced anyone who questioned them. People nodded, some angrily, others with tears in their eyes. Another woman stood up. She tried to fine me $500 for my kids by being visible. A man added, Karen trespassed into my backyard and photographed my yard. Someone else yelled, She threatened to tow my husband's disabled veteran van. The stories poured out like a dam bursting. The board looked overwhelmed, like they had never expected the community to turn on them. Karen slammed her palms on the table. You're all lying. You're just mad because I actually enforce the rules. No, I said softly. They're angry because you enforce cruelty. Karen's eyes narrowed. You think your badge scares me? I know people, powerful people. I can get you removed from your position. I stepped toward her. She flinched. You don't understand something fundamental, Karen. I said, quietly enough only she and the nearest watchers could hear. People like you don't intimidate people like me. You prey on the weak. You pushed a disabled child to tears week after week. You burned her with boiling liquid. I leaned closer. And you did it, I whispered, to provoke me. Karen's lips trembled. I didn't. You wanted power, I said. All you did was show the world your true nature. Before she could speak, Daniel stepped forward. Karen Thompson, he said formally, you're under arrest for aggravated assault on a disabled minor, harassment and endangerment. Karen screamed. No, you can't do this. Denise, tell them. But Denise was backing away from her. Don't you dare leave me. Karen shrieked. Denise folded her arms coldly. You acted independently. The board did not authorize. Yes, you did. Karen screamed. You said to escalate. You told me to. Ma'am, Ruiz cut in. Everything you say is being recorded. Denise froze. Karen collapsed to her knees. The crowd watched, some filming, others silently satisfied. And then I spoke, not to Karen, not to Denise, but to the entire neighborhood. I didn't come here today to destroy the HOA. I said, I came to free this community from the people who have been abusing you. Those days end now. When the officers escorted Karen out, homeowners clapped, not out of cruelty but relief. And as Denise tried to quietly slip away, Daniels stopped her. Ma'am, you're not going anywhere, he said. We need to discuss obstruction of justice and conspiracy. The room erupted again. The entire board was now under investigation. But this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Because after Karen was taken away, I stepped to the microphone and said the words that changed everything. This HOA will no longer operate under fear. I'm placing a full halt on all board activities until legal reviews are completed, and I will personally oversee the investigation. The room broke into applause. The power Karen once held vanished in an instant. For the first time since we moved into that neighborhood, people felt safe. But the final blow, the one that would end the story forever, was still coming. And when it landed, it would be unbelievable. When the HOA meeting ended, the board members taken away one by one, the community cheering, and Karen screaming from inside the patrol car, it felt like victory. But I knew better. Winning one battle doesn't end a war. Not when the people behind the chaos still had secrets buried beneath polished lawns and community rules. And I was about to uncover the biggest one of all. After leaving the meeting, I drove straight back to the hospital. When I walked into the room, Emma was sitting up in bed, eyes tired but hopeful. Dad, she whispered. I hurried to her side. How's my brave girl feeling? She lifted her bandaged arm carefully. It hurts, but am I safe now? That question, that innocent fear in her voice, it shattered me inside. You're safe, I said, my voice thick. No one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm alive. She leaned her head against my chest. Promise. I promise. But as I held her, I knew something wasn't right. Because justice wasn't finished. Not yet. Officer Daniels arrived a few hours later. He closed the hospital room door, his expression more serious than I'd ever seen. Sir, he said, we have a problem. I stood up. What happened? He handed me a manila folder. Inside were new documents, records, signatures, bank statements. What am I looking at? I asked. Karen, he said slowly, wasn't acting alone. I frowned. Denise and the board? We already knew that. Daniels shook his head. No, I mean someone above them. He placed a second folder on the table. We found unauthorized payments made to Karen every month. Large payments. Too large for HOA stipends. I flipped through the pages. Then I saw the sender's name, and the room seemed to tilt. That's impossible, I said. Daniels exhaled. Sir, someone powerful was funding Karen to target families, and according to the messages we found, your family was the first step in a bigger plan. My hands tightened on the papers. Who the hell is behind this? Daniels swallowed. Your predecessor. My blood ran cold. The former police chief, Daniels, said quietly, he's been using Karen and the HOA to pressure certain residents into selling their homes for a development project he's secretly invested in. I stared at him. He resigned months ago, I said. He moved out of state. Yes, Daniels said, but he left a network behind, and Karen was one of his tools. Pieces clicked into place. The sudden HOA pressure, the endless violations, the targeting of my home, specifically a prime corner lot. Karen hadn't just acted out of her own cruelty. She had been paid to destroy us. And when he found out you had retired and moved into the neighborhood, Daniels continued, he saw an opportunity to push you out, quietly, without attracting attention. But Karen ruined his plan by escalating too fast, by attacking my daughter. He never expected you to reveal your position, Daniels added. He thought you were living as a regular dad, easy to overpower, easy to manipulate. I felt a darkness rise inside me, deeper than rage, not for myself, for Emma. Karen had been the weapon. The old police chief had been the handler. and they had both targeted a disabled child. How do we get him? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Daniels gave a slow smile, the kind officers give when justice is about to become personal. You already have, he said. Your HOA meeting went viral online. Thousands of people shared it. Reporters picked it up. The DA saw it. And the moment those documents surfaced, he tapped the folder. A warrant was issued. I stared at him. He's being arrested right now, Daniel said. A breath I didn't know I was holding escaped my chest. Justice. Real justice. Not because I was an assistant chief. Not because I made threats. But because truth is louder than abuse of power. Because a father's love is stronger than corruption. Because one little girl refused to stop smiling, even when life burned her. Later that evening, Emma woke up again. When she saw me smiling, she blinked softly. Why are you happy, Dad? I sat beside her. Because we did it, I said. The woman who hurt you, she's gone. And the people who tried to push us out, they're gone too. She nodded and rested her head against my arm. Good, she whispered. Can I still go to our class next week? I almost laughed. Even burned, bandaged, exhausted, she only wanted to go back to the place she loved. Yes, I said gently. You can go to every class you want. She smiled, small, fragile, beautiful. You're the strongest girl I know, I whispered. Dad, she murmured. Yes, baby. You didn't turn into a superhero today, did you? I smiled. What makes you say that? Because when the nurse told me you saved people before, and that the police listened to you, that sounds like a hero. I kissed the top of her head. No, I'm not a superhero. She looked up. Then what are you? I looked at her bandaged arm, her tired eyes, and I spoke the truest words I'd ever said. I'm your dad, and that makes me stronger than any hero alive. She smiled again and drifted back to sleep. The following week, the community held a meeting, not in fear, not in anger, but in unity. Neighbors apologized for staying silent for so long. Families shared their stories. People stood up for each other in a way they never had before. The HOA board resigned. A new committee formed, one led by real neighbors, not tyrants. Our home became a symbol of change, the house that stood against cruelty and won. But the moment that truly stayed with me was one morning 2 weeks later. Emma, arms still bandaged, rolled into the community center for her art class. Parents stepped aside, instantly smiling at her. Kids waved. Neighbors offered help. And standing at the entrance was a brand new sign, accessible entrance, protected and respected. She looked up at me. Did we win, Dad? I smiled. We didn't just win, I said. We changed everything. And for the first time since we moved into that neighborhood, the air was warm, the road was clear, and my daughter's world finally felt safe. If this story touched your heart, even for a moment, if you felt that pain, that anger, that relief at the end, backhand index pointing right, please hit the like button. It tells me to keep bringing you more powerful stories. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe right now, so you never miss the next gripping, emotional, unbelievable real-life, style story I upload. Backhand index pointing right, and before you scroll, drop your city name in the comments. I love seeing where my family of viewers across the USA is watching from. Your one comment, one like, and one subscription helps this channel grow, and helps me continue creating stories that stand up for families, for kids, and for the people who never deserve the pain they went through. Thank you for being here. Stay safe, stay kind, and I'll see you in the next story.